Hold on a minute. Everyone remembers the massive, tear-jerking car auction Mike Hall held in 2021. 4 decades of collecting, hundreds of rusted-out dreams, all sold off in one heartbreaking day. Rust Valley Restorers aired the episode, and fans all over the world said a sad goodbye to the legendary Junkyard King, thinking his show and his dream was finally over. But then something totally confusing happened. New episodes kept popping up. Mike was still on TV, still slinging wrenches with Avery and Connor, still covered in rust and optimism. How did a man who supposedly sold his entire empire manage to keep his show and his passion alive? The answer to that question reveals the secret twist that most viewers never guessed about what really happened to Mike Hall. Mike Hall was born in 1958 in Winnipeg, but his life truly began when his family moved west to Kamloops, British Columbia. That move was everything for a young boy who needed room to explore. Life in the BC interior gave him back roads, open fields, and most importantly, forgotten metal. By the early 1970s, when he was just a teenager, Mike was already obsessed with old rusted-out wrecks sitting in fields and behind old barns. While other kids were saving up for new bikes or records, Mike was using his money to drag home junkers that no one else wanted. He didn't see trash. He saw potential. A beat-up 50s coupe or a rotting pickup wasn't scrap to him, it was a puzzle waiting to be solved. He was known as the Singing Barber because he always crooned love songs while giving a shave. Grooms would specially request him to sing, and his tips would jump by $20 or $30, huge money back then. By age 14 in 1926, he was making $125 a week, which is over $2,000 today, because a local cafe owner had given him space for his own barber shop. His shop was so popular because of his singing that he had to hire 2 other barbers just to handle the long lines. By the time Mike hit his early 20s, he had already gathered dozens of vintage cars. He didn't go to trade school and he didn't have any fancy certificates on his wall. He taught himself everything by simply doing it. Rebuilding engines, shaping metal, and breathing life back into cars that everyone else had declared dead. Every wreck he brought home became a hard-won lesson. Every engine that wouldn't start was a sleepless night challenge. Slowly, all that trial and error turned into a rare kind of skill, the kind that came from busted knuckles and freezing nights in old sheds, not a classroom. In the 1980s, long before the TV cameras found him, Mike's real career began high up on the mountainsides. He started a company called Chimera Springs Rockworks, and he wasn't pouring concrete. He was hanging off ropes, drilling into cliff faces, and setting off controlled explosions to clear rock for highways. It was dangerous, exhausting work, but Mike loved the rush of adrenaline. Because of his long dreadlocks and his explosive day job, people started calling him the Rasta Blasta. That nickname stuck with him forever. Through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, he made good money from his blasting work, but he didn't save it. He spent almost every penny on junk cars. He had a deep hunger for forgotten vehicles. It didn't matter if they were full of holes or missing half their parts. If Mike felt a car had a soul or a story, he wanted it. And the more it needed saving, the more he was drawn to it. He wasn't buying shiny classics. He was hunting for rust buckets that had been left behind. Over the decades, his property started filling up with vehicles from every era. Rare 60s muscle cars, beat-up pickup trucks, and old European sports cars. Every time he blasted rock for a job and got paid, he used that money to bring another broken machine home. By the 2010s, the number was truly unbelievable. Over 400 vehicles were sitting on his land. It wasn't just a collection. It was a vast landscape of metal that stretched as far as you could see. He joked that he didn't collect cars. He collected rust. That's where the name Rust Bros came from. Mike Hall never intended to be famous. He had settled down quietly on a farm in the Shuswap area of BC, got married, and raised his son, Connor Charman Hall. He loved his family, but his obsession with cars caused a little trouble at home. His wife had to lay down a firm rule: no more junk cars on their property. Their 26-acre farm was not going to turn into a rust graveyard, so Mike simply bought a separate 5-acre lot in the nearby town of Tappan, right off the Trans-Canada Highway. That little plot became his legendary Field of Dreams. It was a sunburnt piece of land absolutely crammed with hundreds of rusting, beautiful old cars. During the day, Mike was the Rasta Blasta, climbing mountains and setting off dynamite. But at night, he was the mad scientist, working alone in his junkyard, trying to breathe life back into forgotten metal. He wasn't doing it for fame. He did it because he loved it. But fate found him anyway. In 2016, Mike was called in to clear a massive rock slide that had blocked a major highway. A camera crew from the Discovery Channel's Highway Through Hell happened to be there filming. Mike, with his wild hair, fearless attitude, and his dynamite, was filmed scaling the cliffs and setting his charges. It was just a short cameo, but his energy and his look made people stop and notice. Back in Tappan, the problem of his 500-car collection was becoming a huge burden. It cost too much to store and maintain, and the attention was getting complicated. Neighbors were complaining, and local officials started asking questions. Mike also had a serious concern about his health. He watched friends pass away and saw the mess they left behind for their families. He often wondered out loud, what are my wife and kids going to do with 400 cars in a field? It wasn't just a sad thought. It was a warning that shaped his next big decision. In 2016, Mike decided he was ready to quit. He put his land and all his cars up for sale as one giant package for $19 million. No one took it seriously. Everyone saw a scrapyard, not a collection. Instead of giving up, Mike did the craziest thing in 2017. He raised the price to $1.45 million. That's when the story exploded. The man selling 5 acres and 300-plus old cars went viral. He became a national curiosity, and producers started calling. One of them was Tyson Hepburn, who remembered Mike from Highway Through Hell. Mike made it clear he would only do a show if it was about fulfilling his dream of restoring cars, not just laughing at his mess. He wanted to turn the chaos into something beautiful. At 60 years old, Mike opened the gates, built a real workshop, and named it Rust Bros Restorations. Rust Valley Restores began filming in 2018. Mike brought in his best friend, the opinionated, big-bearded mechanic Avery Schoaf, nicknamed the Muscle Car MacGyver. He also brought in his calm, practical son, Connor Charman Hall, whose main job was cleaning up his dad's financial messes. The show wasn't like the big-budget car programs. It was about real people fighting against time, rust, and exploded budgets. Mike was a 6-foot-something hippie who said what he felt and spent money like it grew on trees, often pouring his own cash into the business. Connor was constantly reminding him they needed to make a profit, but Mike always built the cars too well, spent too much, and then didn't want to let them go. He'd even give discounts to buyers he liked, just because he wanted to make people's dreams come true, even if it meant losing money. And it did mean losing money a lot. Netflix picked up the show in 2019, making Rust Valley instantly famous worldwide. Car lovers started showing up in Tappan just to see the legendary yard. The bond between Mike and his son was the heart of the show. Mike followed emotion and Connor followed logic, creating a beautiful push and pull. Avery eventually left to start his own shop, Wild Man Restorations, but he kept appearing on the show and even got a spin-off called Backroad Truckers. But by 2020, running Rust Bros was getting too expensive. Mike admitted he never had a business plan and was paying staff and parts out of his own pocket without making profits. Then came the bombshell. The land was zoned for farming. Mike wasn't allowed to run a restoration business there. The local authorities had looked the other way for years, but when Mike started building a new workshop, they cracked down. The shop was legally out of bounds. Then the brutal wildfires of 2021 hit BC, and Mike's yard full of 500 old cars was a massive fire hazard. The legal pressure, the financial stress, and the fear of a wildfire destroying his life's work all combined to force his hand. He quietly sold the Tappan property. Since the new owner didn't want the cars, Mike had to move them. So he planned the huge unreserved auction for October 2nd, 2021. 40 years of my life is going to vanish in one day, Mike said. Over 500 cars, some of which hadn't moved in decades, were sold off. The auction hit Mike hard, but there was also immense relief. The yard was clear, the zoning problem disappeared, and the massive overhead costs were gone. He kept about 30 of his favorites and said goodbye to the rest. So what was the twist? When Rust Valley Restores aired the auction as the Season 4 finale in early 2022, everyone thought the show was over. But here is the secret. Mike Hall never actually stopped restoring cars. Even after the sale, he was immediately offered more cars, joking that after clearing the field, his collection started growing again without him even trying. The production companies, History Channel and Chorus Studios, saw the continuing passion and the strong bond between the crew. They didn't need 500 cars to make a show. They just needed Mike, Avery, and Connor, Mike had already hinted in interviews that they had filmed 8 new episodes throughout 2022. The big auction was the end of one massive chapter, but it wasn't the end of the book. Mike simply downsized and relocated his operation. Season 5 eventually premiered, showing the team adjusting to life after the big sale, working in a smaller, leaner shop with fewer cars, but with the same crazy, optimistic spirit. Mike proved that the heart of Rust Valley was never the land or the number of cars. It was the man under the dreadlocks. He's now in his late 60s, still wrenching, still working with Connor, and still finding cars that just find him. He's become a kind of mentor to younger mechanics, focusing on just a few projects at a time and truly enjoying the work again. He gave up the headache of the massive empire and held on to the pure joy of the wrench. The dream didn't die. It just got a much-needed and much smarter restoration. If you love hearing the true stories behind your favorite TV shows, give this video a like right now. Did this twist surprise you? Tell me in the comments below. And don't forget to share this video with someone else who misses the old Rust Valley yard. Finally, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into a TV legend.